Pick by pick, rounds 5 through 8 of this 3 wide receiver, 12 team Superflex mock draft. Picking things up at the 501, Team 1 has gone Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison. So a quartet of different position players, which leads me to believe that I am going to go in the direction of wide receiver at this point. A couple of reasons here. It is a 3 wide receiver league, and there's going to be a lot of them taken between now and my next pick. So the fact that Marvin Harrison was chosen, I will say we all know he has sky high potential, hopefully a year 2 leap. Another offseason building rapport with Kyler Murray. However, his rookie season was not great by any means. So there are a few players here that I like quite a bit. I love the upside of Tet, love the upside of Travis Hunter, but I think the pick here is actually going to be Devontae Smith. He was wide receiver 17 in points per game last season. So not necessarily a league winner by any means, but definitely someone that I can count on, his consistency. And should the defense take a step back and they have to throw more, should Saquon miss any time, should AJ Brown miss any time, we're looking at a top 10 position player. This next pick here, right, starting off Lamar, AJ Brown, Ashton Jeanty, and Devontae Adams. I like this team quite a bit. We all have high hopes for Jeanty. He is still a rookie, so maybe I'll take a look at what running backs are available to me. With Walker, hopefully he can continue what he was doing as a pass catcher last year. We know his calling card coming out of college wasn't, necessarily that he was a receiving running back, but then we see a career high in 46 catches last season, and that was on a limited season. So assuming he builds off that with this new outside zone run scheme, which suits him very well, I think Kenneth Walker can be in for a really big season. Moving over to the next pick here, I only have one wide receiver. We do stress the importance of getting a top 11 wide receiver, and I do have Ladd as my number 11, so I am happy about that. But going back-to-back running backs and looking at Daniels as like my hero quarterback, probably not going to go in the quarterback direction. So let's take a look at wide receivers are available to us. I'm going to go with DK Metcalf here. He has the potential to be an alpha. And more importantly, he's kind of the only game in town in this offense. We know Arthur Smith's going to want to run the ball. We know Aaron Rodgers is going to want to change the play up at the line of scrimmage and throw to his guy. We know how he hyper targets his number one. And I've said this before, but there's no risk of Devontae Adams getting traded to the Steelers this year. So I definitely like Metcalf here in this spot. Moving down to the next pick, here, this team, I have Jamar Chase, Brock Bowers, Baker Mayfield, and Mike Evans with Breece Hall. We saw the volume drop off last season quite a bit, and it's no secret to say he was a complete and total bust as a first-round pick last year. And I think it'll be interesting to see what this offense looks like. There's not a whole lot of playmakers. Obviously, there's him, Garrett Wilson, but the coaching staff keeps talking about how this is going to be a committee, and we know that Justin Fields like to run it near the goal line, and maybe he doesn't necessarily dump it off as much as what Breece has been accustomed to over his career. But I think for this build, it's probably worth taking a shot on just because I don't have a running back yet, but it definitely makes me a little bit nervous. Now, for the next pick here, I do have Patrick Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, Chase Brown, George Kittle. So there's so many directions that I can go in given this unique build. As hopeful as I am that Mahomes will have a bounce back season, and we do know that he is more than capable of that. I do want to lock in a second quarterback because there probably will be a decent amount that go between me and this next pick. So I will take who is my highest ranked player at the position and go with Caleb Williams. Now, right now throughout camp, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, right? We'll see clips of Caleb Williams just looking horrible, and then Ben Johnson's getting on all his guys. But I think, he's going to continue to grow in that system throughout camp. And we know Ben Johnson is a little bit of a drill sergeant in calling out his guys. So I do hope that gets ironed out. But for me, last season, he was QB 16, and that was kind of seen as like a lost year and, a horrible season, et cetera, et cetera. So that definitely feels like the floor, and we know his ability to rush can help elevate that as well. So moving over to the next team, Joe Burrow, Drake London, Tyreek Hill, and Omarion Hampton. So I can go in a few different directions here. It's still early to take, a tight end now that the big three are gone, in my opinion. So I think what I'll do is I will lock in Tet McMillan. With Tet McMillan, this is a guy who I think is going to just step in very nicely to that number one wide receiver role. Like Bryce Young told the GM and the head coach that this was the guy that they need to target in the draft. And we saw Deontay Johnson in the beginning of the season was averaging over 9 targets per game in that X role. And, Tet McMillan is kind of just an athletic freak, right? I mean, he kind of profiles similarly to like a mix of like Mike Evans and Drake London. Now, obviously, those are lofty goals, but I just think, his ceiling is something that we should definitely take into account. So I really like him here. He's definitely a target of mine. Now, moving over to team 7, I've got a couple stud running backs. I've got JSN and then obviously Jalen Hurts at the top. So I will probably look at the wide receiver position. Is there anyone here that I like quite a bit? I'll go ahead and take Travis Hunter here. I know that might be a little bit of a stretch pairing him as my number 2, but this guy is he's an athletic phenom, and all he does is make plays on the football field on both sides of the ball. So I know he's a very polarizing prospect this year, but he's kind of one of those guys that if you pass on him and if you fade him and he's going off and he's playing 75, 80+% of the snaps on offense, you're probably going to be wishing that you had taken him, because we know that Leon Cohen is going to have a very strong play design revolved around Hunter, obviously Brian Thomas Jr., and kind of whatever that mix of that running back is any given week. So moving over to team 8, this is the Bo Nix team. I'm not a big Bo Nix fan. I know Trevor probably gave that spiel in the last episode. So looking at the quarterback position, I actually have Drake May ahead of Justin Herbert, not by much. I just think with Drake May's ability to rush for potentially 700 yards this season, which isn't that far-fetched given what we saw in a smaller sample size last year. But I do want to pair him with Justin Herbert, just the stability that Herbert provides, right? Like Bo Nix is still a little bit of an unknown. I know he's getting ranked as like QB7 right now, but I don't know. It's not like we've never seen sophomore slumps before. I know they added around him, but anything can happen. And with Herbert, we don't have to really worry about anything. So I don't necessarily love pairing like Bo Nix with Drake May, for example, or on this team 5, like I paired Caleb Williams, who has a lot of upside, with the stability of Patrick Mahomes. So just kind of think about that as you're building out your quarterback room in Superflex. Now at Team 9, this is kind of a hero RB build with Saquon at the top, Nico, Jared Goff, Terry McLaurin. I do like this team quite a bit. I will go with Kamara here. And we see year over year, Kamara is just going to catch a ton of passes. Hopefully this offense takes a step forward with the addition of Kellen Moore. We'll see how that quarterback room shakes out. I still kind of wish they would have just drafted Shedeur Sanders. Time will tell with everything, but I don't know if Tyler Shuck inspires too much confidence, but you never know. Now, Team 10, led off by Bijan, a couple different directions I can go in here. With Purdy, it does intrigue me to potentially pair him with Drake May, so that is an option. Let's take a peek at the running backs. We've got Chuba, Travion Henderson, Joe Mixon, so this does kind of dry out a little bit. I still have Chuba and Connor ranked one spot ahead of Henderson, so I could play that ADP game. Let's take a peek at the wide receivers. I already have Malik Neighbors and T. Higgins. Maybe this is where I'm going to take a shot on Rashee Rice, right? So we'll see how the rest of this team pans out, but I've got 2 studs at the top with Neighbors and Higgins, and we know the issue with Higgins is, it's always kind of a health concern with him. He's missing, 4 games, it seems like every year, but usually that doesn't come in the very, very beginning of the season for players. So hopefully I can, count on him. Hopefully he stays healthy all season. I know we're kind of beating a dead horse with that, but I think the ability for Rice to get plugged into lineups in the second month of the season provides a whole bunch of upside for Team 10 here. Now, Team 11, very similar build, hero running back approach, and then Brian Thomas, Garrett Wilson, and Dak Prescott. I definitely will be adding a second quarterback for both of Team 11 and 12. It kind of just depends where and if I want to kind of play that ADP game. So for me, I'm just going to jump on Drake May here because I don't want to get snaked on him. He's definitely someone, like I mentioned, I have, a spot or 2 ahead of Justin Herbert, talking about the different builds and strategies, the reason why I took Herbert above there, but I don't want to get sniped by Team 12. And if you're looking at that team, they didn't have one quarterback until round 4. That's definitely something that they would probably be looking to do. Now, at the running back position, I'm actually going to go with Chuba here. I would probably go James Conner in a vacuum, but the fact that I already have Kyler Murray, I don't mind, when people want to pair their top quarterback with the top running back, and this could turn around to bite me in the butt, but I don't know. It makes me a little bit more nervous when it's Arizona. I'm hopeful that they're going to be a good team, but it's a little bit different when it's like, I don't know, Lamar and Henry or Goff and Gibbs, or you get the idea. So I will lean in Chuba's direction, and then I will be selecting a second quarterback here. This is interesting because for the purposes of Superflex, like guys like Jordan Love, CJ Stroud are definitely a little bit safer, I would say, than Justin Fields. But Justin Fields, it's kind of an interesting conversation with Fields. So I'm going to go Fields here. When you zoom out on Fields' career, it's always like, oh yeah, when he's a starter, he's a top end option, but you're going to have to deal with like a lot of inconsistency as well. So last season for the Steelers, it's like, yeah, he had those couple really big games, but he had a couple duds. So it's like when he's not rushing into the end zone, like we're not expecting him to score a bunch of points. So that kind of holds true with Kyler Murray as well. So I think this team is kind of interesting because you're going to have some massive spike weeks with those guys, but if they're not rushing or getting rush touchdowns, that's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. But I understand and respect the fact that a lot of people like to build teams out that way and just kind of go for that upside. So swinging back around to team 11, I've got my two quarterbacks. I've got two stud wide receivers, and then I've got Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm going to go back to the well at the running back position. I hadn't taken one since the first round. This pick pretty easy for me, James Conner, right? Like when he's on the field, he's a top 12 running back. We see it year over year. Obviously, health has been a concern, and yes, last year was kind of a revelation of he staying healthy and pretty much the whole position seemingly staying healthy outside of, unfortunately, Christian McCaffrey. But I digress. I like that pick quite a bit. So now swinging back to this team, this is probably where I would be considering getting my next quarterback, because this tier here where it's like Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, JJ McCarthy, Trevor Lawrence, I do think it falls off a little bit after that. Like you can say Tua when he's on the field, he's a top producer, and I totally respect that. I'm just not a huge Tua fan. So I think what I'll do is I will take Jordan Love. We're only a year removed from Love being the number 5 quarterback in fantasy. I do think this team's going to have to throw more this season. So I like Love as a nice bounce back candidate this year. All right. So team 9, Saquon, Nico, Jared Goff, Terry McLaurin, Alvin Kamara, a bunch of different directions I can go. I still don't want to be the first person to grab like this tight end tier of Sam Laporta or TJ Hawkins, and maybe later in this round, but let's take a look at the wide receiver position. DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy, Zay Flowers. Worthy's interesting, right? Because there's a very good opportunity that he gets off to an extremely hot start. Like Hollywood is a little bit banged up. We're expecting Rice to be suspended. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I would just guess 4 games. Who knows? But we saw what happened with Worthy when he filled in for that Rice role. Now at the latter half of the season, if Rice does go back to that same role, I would expect some more boom bust weeks. But you never know. I mean, if Worthy just grows and improves dramatically this year, we could be seeing him continue to be a focal point. So he's not someone that I've really been drafting much of. However, I can see the vision. So I will go with Worthy here. Now, this next team, I only have one wide receiver at this point, and he is CeeDee Lamb. So I'm definitely in need of a wide receiver here. And I think Cortland Sutton is an interesting option. We saw last season he finished as the wide receiver 15. They've added Pat Bryant. There's a lot of noise kind of behind Cortland Sutton at the wide receiver position. They do have Evan Ingram and a couple new running backs. So I'm a little bit hesitant about Sutton, but can't argue with the fact that, he's going to be the alpha at the position for this team. All right. So next team, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a quarterback. So I could go back to the well at quarterback here. That's probably what I would do. I'm trying to build these teams as if they were each my own specific team. So I think what I'll do is I will go with my highest ranked quarterback, CJ Stroud. I know we all probably got a little bit ahead of our skis in ranking Stroud so highly last year, but I get it, right? Like he had an incredible rookie season. They add Stephon Diggs to the team. Like we saw Nico Collins bloom into being a superstar, and the rapport with Tank Dell was obviously unquestioned. But I know this offensive line is going to be a mess, and now Mixon's banged up. So to me, he's going to have to throw a ton. And I think Woody Marks is going to be involved quite a bit, the running back out of USC in the passing game, because that was kind of his calling card in college, and he's an excellent pass catcher. So if he's going to have to get it out quickly, and he's got, a bunch of guys to throw to. I love the new guys from Iowa State, and I think Christian Kirk will probably be nice, potential late round flyer at the beginning of the season. I don't expect him to have a whole ton of value throughout the whole season, but you get where I'm going here. Now, next team, the Joe Burrow team. Could go back to the well at quarterback here. JJ McCarthy, Trevor Lawrence, Michael Penix. Interesting. So again, That's probably what I would do here. I know it's just a little bit risky with Hampton as my only running back. So, and then pairing him with another rookie is a little bit risky, and then another rookie. So that is interesting. So let's go and lock in Trevor Lawrence. Now, team 5, I've got a one wide receiver, one running back, and then obviously I'm set at quarterback and at tight end. So at the running back position, Chase Brown, I think this presents a good opportunity to go in on TreVeyon Henderson. TreVeyon Henderson is someone that I've absolutely loved since watching him, his freshman year just go crazy at Ohio State. I mean, this guy is an absolute stud. He doesn't fumble the ball. He catches passes. He pass protects, added much needed electricity to this offense. So he's a guy that I haven't really pushed up more because I was kind of aggressive in ranking him as like RB20 a few months ago, but he's someone that I've definitely been kind of all in on and will continue to be. Now, this next team, the Breece Hall team, again, kind of nervous about Breece Hall. So maybe what I'll do with Breece Hall is I kind of want to add like a little bit of stability at the position. And I'm thinking David Montgomery might be an interesting option. If you're saying like RJ Harvey has more upside, I totally get it. Montgomery's not going to be as involved, but I don't know. He's still going to be involved in the offense. He's still going to score a lot of touchdowns. So I think as this well kind of dries up, he's someone that I can feel confident in. And if things do go south, I'll have time to kind of replace that throughout the regular season. So let's go with Monty there. Now, team 3, Jaden Daniels. So all 3 of these teams obviously started off with very stud quarterbacks at the position. So if I'm on the clock here, I'm going to go quarterback because I'm afraid team 1 and team 2 are going to grab 1, if not 2 quarterbacks. I will go in on JJ McCarthy here. I will say I had Stafford ranked above McCarthy. I don't know the severity of his like shoulder injury that he's dealing with, or if that's just kind of like natural camp rest, or if he kind of slept on the plane wrong on his way back from Hawaii, who knows? But I think JJ McCarthy, we've seen year over year in Kevin O'Connell offense that he just supports top 20 quarterbacks. And McCarthy, although I wasn't super high on him as a prospect, he at least has the pedigree of being a national champion. And I think that definitely goes a long way. And, it's weird on fantasy Twitter right now. Some days you open it and it's like JJ McCarthy looks horrible. He's missing passes. And then it's like, oh, JJ McCarthy looks like the second coming of Tom Brady. And it's like, there's just so much like information overload right now. I'm kind of just looking at this holistically and kind of trusting the system. So team 2, the Lamar team, I'm not sure if I need to go in on another quarterback here. I see kind of a lot of sameness with some of these guys at the top. I could go in on Stafford just to pair that stability. I've got 2 running backs, so probably not going to go in that direction. Someone at the wide receiver position who I am definitely higher on than most, and I seem to get in every draft because his ADP is pushed way down, but I have him in kind of the mid 20s in my rankings is Chris Olave. Again, Saints are not going to be great, but this is just a bet on the talented player. Now, team 1 can go a bunch of different directions here other than obviously tight end. And the reason I didn't take a tight end in team 2 is, team 1 has McBride. So obviously always pay attention to the board. At the running back position, I already have Henry. So I think this presents a good opportunity to go in on someone like RJ Harvey. Exciting rookie. Maybe was drafted a little bit higher than we all expected. I know in like my pre-draft best ball teams, I got a ton of RJ Harvey because I thought he was like this darling sleeper, and like these, analyst scouts that I like to listen to on YouTube were, kind of talking him up again as kind of in that same category as kind of an electric playmaker who's going to fall in the drafts, and obviously didn't fall in the drafts. But to me, that's obviously a better sign. Obviously, you're going to have to pay up for him more than you had to 3 months ago, but you get where I'm going here. And that brings an interesting conundrum here too, right? So if I've got Henry and I've got Harvey, I could even think about like going with Joe Mixon, and even if he starts the season on PUP, just start those 2 other guys at the position. So I would think about that. At the wide receiver position, I'm a little bit thinner than I would like with Marvin Harrison and Devontae Smith. Now, looking at this board, I'm definitely lower on DJ Moore. I'm definitely lower on Flowers. JMO, I'm a little bit lower than consensus. There's a lot of guys that I'm a little bit lower on consensus. I think I originally actually had Addison the highest on this list, but with Addison, he might get suspended 3 games as well. So we'll see what happens. But someone who's getting more and more hype, and I think deservedly so, and finally has a quarterback in a team that's going to pass a ton is George Pickens. So I'm starting to push him up my boards. And now what started as kind of a scary situation at the wide receiver position is still a little bit scary, but a little bit less so. So I like that pick here. Now, team 2, the Lamar team, I am going to go back to the quarterback well, and I will grab Matthew Stafford, and let's just hope that all of the injury stuff is just noise. So now this team here, team 3, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. I think I'm just going to bite the bullet and take DJ Moore. Obviously, a very talented player on what should be an ascending offense. The worry is, well, one, Ben Johnson was kind of like not so subtly calling him out, not by name when things started off. We see him taking lineups at running back, but there's a good chance that he just ends up being the number one. I'm pushing Rome Odunze up closer and closer to DJ Moore. I still have Moore ahead, but he's not someone I'm super confident in. But if we finish the year and it's like, oh yeah, obviously DJ Moore was the number one and they played a lot of 12 personnel and Luther Burden made some nice plays and Colston Loveland was solid, but everything was really going to DJ Moore. I wouldn't be totally and completely shocked. So I think that's a good pick there. Now with team 4, I don't have a second quarterback. So the fact that I have Baker does scare me a little bit. Would any of us be like completely shocked if Baker came down to earth like just a little bit after these last couple stellar seasons? I hope that doesn't happen because he's such a fun player, but wouldn't completely be earth shattering given his longer career history. So let's go ahead and lock in Tua here. Again, not the biggest Tua guy, but when he's on the field and in good matchups, he is, a solid fantasy producer. So next team here, I've got Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams, a couple running backs I really like, only one wide receiver. So this is getting scary. I think this is where we're probably just going to have to take a shot on Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams had a breakout season, right? And they keep talking about how they want this year to be even more of a breakout. My biggest concern with Jameson Williams has always been like he's touchdowns that he scored last year were all just like seemingly all over 40 yards. And it was like, can he just keep repeating that? But I'm sure anyone that watched him in Alabama knows that, hey, yeah, he probably can. So I think if they're going to continue to feed this guy, he's going to continue to improve. So I'm willing to take that risk. And again, I absolutely needed a wide receiver. Now for this team here, I only have one running back, and that's Marion Hampton. So I think, I'm not in a position to take Joe Mixon because there's that risk that he starts on PUP. DeAndre Swift, Caleb Johnson. I like Caleb Johnson more than Swift, but I think I'm going to have to take DeAndre Swift here because I just need that stability. And Swift year over year kind of just finishes between like RB 18 and RB 22 or something, like very consistent. Definitely not a league winner by any means, but something that I can rely on. Now with this next team, probably going to need a third wide receiver. Don't love waiting this long at wide receiver. And someone I talked about moving up in my rankings is Rome Odunze. So I will go ahead and take Rome here. I know this is a little bit risky with JSN, Travis Hunter, and Rome Odunze, but if we do see Rome take that next step, I think he could be in for a stellar season. Now, another team here where I should go back to the wide receiver well, Judy, Calvin Ridley, and Jacoby Myers. I think I have Jacoby Myers actually ranked the highest of this group. Again, just consistent year-over-year finishes in the top 30, gets ranked outside the top 40. If you watch this channel for some time, you kind of get the drill. Now, with this team, all these teams to the right of me, teams 10, 11, and 12, already have two quarterbacks, so I probably will play a little bit of chicken with that position. I already have Saquon and Kamara, and I have Nico Collins, Terry McLaurin, and Xavier Worthy. So I actually like this team quite a bit. So I think with this team, it presents a couple interesting options here. Again, with Addison's looming suspension, I don't necessarily want to take on that risk until a later round. Jerry Jeudy, his splits without Jameis were a little bit scary. So I'm not really buying in on that train. I will take him at some point, obviously, but I think someone who's going to be in for a stellar season is Calvin Ridley. We saw this last year with Terry McLaurin absolutely smashing his ADP when he got a good quarterback. And I'm not trying to compare Cam Ward to Jaden Daniels, but I mean, did any of us see that coming? Like, I know he was coming off a Heisman season, but man, did he surprise some people. So I think with Cam Ward, and all the reviews so far in camp have been very positive, and Calvin Ridley is kind of the only game in town as far as like an established player at the pass catching position. I know they brought in Lockett, but I don't think any of us at this point in Lockett's career are expecting big things. And then, a couple wide receivers, Shamari DK, who is, we'll see. And then, the kid from Stanford, who I actually really like, but I don't think he necessarily profiles as a high possession guy. So really like the Ridley pick. Now, swinging back to this team, I don't have a second running back, so I don't want to go too hard on the hero RB approach. I will go ahead. Oh man, these are kind of rough. I don't know if I'm going to take him. I just load up at wide receiver here. Interesting. Don't love that. I'm actually going to go in on TJ Hawkinson here. I think Hawkinson, I have him ranked as my tight end 4. I think consensus is he's like 4 or 5, but I think, with Addison potentially missing a few games, they're going to be hyper targeting, obviously, Justin Jefferson, but the defense are also going to be focusing a lot on Jefferson. So I think Hawkinson presents an intriguing option here. Now, with this team, probably looking at a wide receiver because I already do have Gibbs and James Conner. I will go in on someone who has absolutely sky high upside should Tyreek Hill fall off a cliff performance wise this season. It's no secret that he might be a ticking time bomb this year. I don't want to speak too ill, but if things go south with him quickly, I don't think any of us would be completely shocked. So if that happens, we know how talented Waddle is. And if this offense is revolved around he and A-Chain, I think he can absolutely feast. Now at this position, it's interesting because this is probably where I'd want to take Laporta. Had I not taken Amon-Ra. But, I don't necessarily love investing in those 2 pass catchers. I know it's going to be so tough to win on weeks where Gibbs and Monty and Jameson Williams score. Like for me, it's too much of a tough pill to swallow. So I'm not going to go in that direction here. And I will look back at the wide receiver position, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin, Ricky Pearsall. So Ricky Pearsall right now, I'm just continuing to push him up and up because the Niners wide receiver room is a little bit of a mess, to say things kindly. And Ricky Pearsall is a first round pick. I know he was kind of a surprise in the first round, but hey man, he's extremely talented and he's a fantastic athlete. And we saw, kind of the end of the season, him really show out. So I think, Kittle is going to be the top dog, and obviously McCaffrey, assuming he's good to go. But I think there's a lot of room for Kittle to have a really good, or for Pearsall to have a really good season. So with the next pick here, maybe I will take a peek at the running back position. Joe Mixon, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson. I'll go ahead and take a shot on Caleb Johnson here. He's a player that I really like and was very, very high on as a prospect. Now we are getting some reports that his pass protection isn't where it needs to be, and that's going to be a problem when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback specifically. So keep an eye on that, but I don't think Jaylen Warren's, talent level as a rusher is enough to completely keep Caleb off the field. And I think we'll continue to see his role grow more and more throughout the season. So I'm already set pretty comfortably with Bucky and Chuba, and I can maybe be a little bit patient with Caleb, assuming I can get a nice wide receiver to fill out that flex spot in the time being. Now, here is where I will go in on Sam Laporta. I think enough time has passed, and I don't necessarily love, like I said, pushing up these tight ends 4 and 5 and taking them. It's kind of big 3-year wait, but we know he's very talented and only a year removed from being the number 1 tight end in fantasy. All right, so team 8, the Bijan team, Bijan, Neighbors, Purdy, Higgins, Rice, Love, Hawkinson. So definitely want to go in on a running back here. Man, it's just Joe Mixon is just staring me in the face, but I'm not going to take him until I have a team with 2 running backs already. Isaiah Pacheco, Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson. Oh man, there's just, that's not good. That's not really that good at all. Oh man. Okay. Let's go with, let's see, how's this team built? So I'm going to need someone actually at wide receiver to start because I don't have that person yet. And as ill as I spoke about Jerry Jeudy, I'm not going to be able to start Addison, right? And Golden's a rookie. Jennings is an interesting option as well. He's kind of banged up. So let's go with Jerry Jeudy. Don't love that. Again, the splits with and without Jameis were pretty drastic, but we know he's the number 1, and I actually kind of like Cedric Tillman a lot too. So hopefully Flacco's the quarterback, at least for the first half of the season, because I think he can really be good for Jeudy. So kind of just looking at the silver lining there. So now this team, I am pretty loaded at the wide receiver position, which is awesome. I feel great about the running back position, and I feel really good about Jared Goff. So I will go in on my second quarterback. So Goff provides, quite a bit of stability, so I can be a little bit more aggressive with this pick, if you will. So I'd be looking kind of more towards someone like Bryce Young or Cam Ward versus had I gone with like an upside player, maybe I'd want the stability of like a Geno Smith. So I think I will go with Bryce Young here. I don't know if I love that a lot, but I mean, he finished the season very hot last year, and they add Ted McMillan, and if he's got his confidence back, he was the number one pick for a reason, right? And if he continues to rush, I don't expect the amount of rushing touchdowns that he had last year, but we'll see. And this defense is not necessarily going to be great, and we've seen kind of in those like garbage time shootout games, Bryce Young really rise to the occasion. So I think he's someone that should be on your list this season. I don't love him as a second quarterback; I prefer him as a third. But in these 12-team leagues, I mean, the well dries out very fast. So moving over to team 8. So I've got CeeDee Lamb, Cortland Sutton, and Jacoby Myers at the wide receiver position, McCaffrey and Kyron at the running back position. So this presents kind of a really good buying opportunity for Mixon because even if he starts on the pup, I feel very confident in McCaffrey and Kyron. Now, team 7, I've got Hurts, Stroud, Achane, Jacobs, JSN, Travis Hunter, Roma Dunze. So a trio of wide receivers that no one is doubting their upside. However, maybe not the most stable. So I will probably go here with someone. Actually, why don't we go with Stephon Diggs here? I just think that he's going to get off to a really good start, and I think he's going to have a really nice season. He's already looked good in camp. We know he can be the number one. We're not expecting, him to turn back the clock 8 years, but I don't know if he's just going to be getting a bunch of targets from Drake May. I'm more than willing to draft him above ADP, and some of the other guys that I was looking at, they have some question marks as well. So with this team 6, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, London Hill, Tet, Hampton, and Swift. Pretty good team so far there. I know if you're watching this and you are a Zay Flowers fan, you're probably like, oh, why don't you pick Zay Flowers? Zay Flowers is awesome. The reason I don't pick Zay Flowers and the reason I'm just not in on Zay Flowers this year is in the games in which they're favored or they're winning, he just becomes a complete and total ghost. I mean, it's not even like, I understand that's kind of the case for a lot of players, right? But his just kind of boom bust weeks are just, it's too much. I mean, he'll have games where he's not even targeted more than like 3 times, for example. So looking at last year, it's like, yeah, he comes out in these, high octane games, 10 targets, 11 targets, then blowout games, 4 targets, 2 targets, and you see 1 target. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of overthinking it, and I love him as a player. But to me, it's like Lamar had the best passing year of his career, and Zay Flowers still finished as like the wide receiver 25, but he was like wide receiver 36 on a points per game basis. So I just don't really see that much of a ceiling. Now, if the likely foot injury is worse than we anticipate, then that can definitely draw some targets, but he's just not someone that's necessarily looked at in the red zone. And he might even come off the field in, inside the 10 or even inside the 20 now that they have DeAndre Hopkins as well. So I have my concerns, but you can't doubt that he's a great player on a great offense. Now, team 5, definitely need a wide receiver here because I only have Jefferson and JMO. Who do I like most out of this group? I can't start Addison if he's suspended. Debo makes me a little bit concerned. Jennings, we'll see about health. Why don't we just go with Matthew Golden? I think Matthew Golden is someone that is going to have a really nice year. I don't know if the volume is going to be insane. However, I think he's a really fine player on a really good offense. And I think the fact that LaFleur and, the organization selected him and they never select first round wide receivers makes me believe that they have a plan for him. Now, team 4, Baker, Tua, Breece Hall, David Montgomery, Evans, and Chase. So I've got a lot of high upside, especially with Chase, Evans, Breece Hall. So I can go in a couple directions here. I wish they would push Quinshon Judkins down. It's just ridiculous. Let's go with Jennings here. We've seen his ability to score in bunches, and he's on a great offense, and hopefully the injury's not something too bad. And now team 3, Taylor, Cook, Ladd, DK, DJ Moore. Really like this team. I think it's too early to go after that next tier of tight end. I don't have Kelsey ranked anywhere near this. I actually have Njoku as my number 6 tight end, so I'm not going to reach here on that. So I think this is where I will take Jordan Addison because he is my 4th wide receiver. He's like a consistent year-over-year player, but I kind of hate that term because we know his like weeks are very boom bust. You're like, you look at it and you're like, oh, he's wide receiver 21, he's wide receiver 23. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of highs and lows, and he catches a lot of touchdowns. So I've always loved Addison in best ball, but in redraft it can be a little bit frustrating. But a good player. and I have a chance to stack him with JJ McCarthy, right? And so I'm not necessarily huge on stacking, but when it's somebody late, I think that's worth at least taking a shot on. Now, this team, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Chris Olave, Ginty, Ken Walker. Ooh, anybody that knows me knows that I really like this team. Running back, Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Etienne. I think what we'll do is we'll just take Chris Godwin here. If he does start on PUP, I can put him in that IR spot and I can fill it in with another bench player. But if he gets back to form or close to form of what we saw early last season, he could be in for a monster year. Now the caveat is Emeka Ibuka is just going to step into that role and just be an absolute stud. So I do fear for Godwin, but I think in the 8th round, 9th round, 10th round, whenever you're getting this guy, it's worth just taking a shot. Now with the last pick here, I've got this team built out pretty good, so I can go either at the running back position, wide receiver position, or the quarterback position. But since I don't have a third quarterback, let's go ahead and take Michael Penix. Cam Ward intrigues me a little bit as well. Obviously, Richardson, if you want to ride that roller coaster, by all means, I'm happy to take him as a third quarterback, depending on where he falls, but not as a second. So I think with Penix, obviously we saw a very small sample size last year, but hopefully he can continue to improve. And I do think he has a lot of gunslinger mentality in his game, maybe a little bit of, like Jameis style in his game. So we might be seeing some 3 interception games, or we might be seeing some 4 touchdown games. So overall, that's rounds 5 through 8 of this 12-team Superflex 3 wide receiver mock draft. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one.